Hello, dear listener, and welcome to ThriveCast, unlocking your full potential. Your well-being is our priority, and we're here to provide you with practical, heartfelt advice on living your best life. Together, we'll explore identity, purpose, prosperity mindset, authenticity, and so much more. So grab your headphones and get ready. Your journey starts now. So, welcome everybody to this podcast where we're talking about truth, healing, and thriving, and especially how you can feel this in the present moment, right here where you are. And me on this podcast, I'm Oscar. I'm an emotional fitness coach, and I drive the community Live Your Purpose on Facebook. I also have a homepage called realitydecoding.com where I help and coach people how to thrive. And I'm here together with Katarina. Katarina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course. Thank you, Oscar. And I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be alive today. And I am an entrepreneurial blueprint consultant, but I work with blueprints in every area of your life. We all have blueprints. So I help you thrive in every area of your life. And you can reach me on LinkedIn at Catherine Carlsson or Katarina Hanssens Carlsson. Reach me on LinkedIn. So today we're going to talk about shame. The subject nobody wants to talk about, but it's one of the most powerful emotions that you can possibly have. And once you own your shame, your life will take off because everybody has it. Everybody has shame. So, Oscar, what would you say about shame?
Oh, well, shame is it's such an icky emotion. And I would say that shame is the deepest separation of emotion we can ever feel. Because shame is essentially when you're saying to yourself that I'm not worthy of love, which also means that you're not worthy of the Creator's love. So you're separating yourself from source. You're separating yourself from the very, source of energy that sustains your body, your life, your relationship, everything, because you're saying that you're not worthy of it. So, and you feel, and it's such a powerful feeling also, because most people who feel shame, they feel shamed of even expressing that they're feeling shame. So you carry it inside, and it becomes like this, this entity that starts attacking you in your mind and in your body and in everything. And it's eating you up inside. Why? Because you do not know how to, first of all, take care of it. But not only that, because you're afraid of what anyone is going to think of you, because you're already saying to yourself that you're worthy of love, or I'm not worthy of love. So you're separating yourself. And you're separating yourself, as I said, from source, but also from others. So it's like, how can you get out of this, right? It's almost like you need to either have so much shame in your life, so you come to the place that's like, you know what? I've had it. I'm okay. I'm okay with having my shame, and you start expressing it. That's when release happens. Because shame needs to be expressed. That's what, an introduction to shame, I would say, around this. What are your thoughts?
Beautiful. I love the way that you express shame so powerfully, because it
Mm.
does have a hold on us. It's like, ah. And I know that shame is fear-based. And
Yeah.
I believe that it runs or I should say, our inner saboteur runs us with fear and shame. But fear is more easy to feel. Shame is not, because we don't want to feel shame, because we feel ashamed of feeling shame. So it's the root of every single failure in our lives. Okay? Because we
Yes.
feel shame before we fail. And then shame makes us fail, right? Does that make sense? And where does shame come from? Well, it could come from our parents, not necessarily, but it can come from our parents, definitely come from school, authorities. We can experience all kinds of shame. It can be relationship shame, financial shame, business shame, any kind of shame, bodily shame. Some of us are ashamed of our bodies. Some of us are ashamed of our weight, that we're too big or we're too small.
Yeah. And I would love to add something to this as well. The interesting thing about shame is that there's a field when people are feeling shame. And when we're a child, that field is something we're just tapping into. So you do not necessarily need to be shamed in order to even be in the field of shame. You know, it's like when someone is shameful and you're a child and you're looking at that, then you're relating and saying, "Oh, that is a way of expression as well." And it's almost like it just takes a hold of you, and you get enveloped in that aura of that field. So it's very hard to protect yourself, because as people are expressing it, it is so easy to either you're saying, "Oh, it's shame, I don't want that," right? But if you're saying, "I don't want it," then you're also pressing it away inside of you, right? You're saying it's not an okay at the expression to feel shame, and therefore I'm going to hide the shame inside of me, because again, we are one, right? So if I see the shame is in another and I do not accept that, then I will also not accept that inside of myself. And that's a hard thing to handle because we think that we're always like, oh, they are them and I am me. But no, what I see in them and what I don't accept in them is the same I do not accept in myself.
Exactly. And shame, we want to hide it, we want to deny it. But the more we do, the more we feel ashamed deep down. So, and the more worthless we feel. So, what do we do about it? Number one, we admit it. And viewers, if you like, you can take a sheet of paper
Mm.
and write down everything you feel ashamed of. And the more, the better. Because when you admit it, it's out there and you can control it, and not your inner saboteur, which is controlled by the reptilian brain. It's supposed to be there to keep us safe and out of harm's way, but it keeps us small and limited, and it sets us on the path of death, because it's not about life. It's not about life.
Yeah.
It's about
Yeah.
shame. So
Yeah, and I would love to add another thing as well. Of course, they would write that down, but as they write that down, what they can also understand as they are doing this is that when you're expressing that shame, realize that because we are one, and because if we now take in God, right, in this equation, first of all, God loves you, You're never separated from him. He always sees it. But the moment you write it down and you're saying and you're admitting to yourself, to God or to Jesus or whomever that you feel, looks at you, and you're saying to yourself, I feel shameful about this, you know, and allowing yourself to admit it and really feel how that shame feels, but also allowing yourself to sense it's like, okay, someone is seeing this. Someone is seeing this as I'm expressing it, because then it becomes even more powerful, because all of a sudden you wrote your shame and nothing happened, right? You weren't you weren't all of a sudden wiped out of the existence, or you were not, you know, disregarded or whatever. You were just allowed to do it, and then you might feel a release. So I would love to add that.
Good, good,
But
good. Thank you.
continue. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I want to say the most important thing about shame and the deepest shame we have is actually spiritual shame. The fact that we've denied who we are, we've denied our divinity, we've denied our not religion, because it's nothing really to do with religion. We've denied our spirituality. We've denied that we are one. When we deny that we are one, then we are at war with each other. We can rebel. Oscar and I were talking about all the upheavals that are happening in the world right now. And Oscar and I are very curious about that. But when we let go of spiritual shame, we become divine beings, whether we believe in God or not. We know we live in a universe. That's a scientific fact. So you and we are universal beings. And as universal beings, we are one. When you admit that, you begin to let go of your shame. So that's the first step. Shall I go on, Oscar, or would you like to add to that?
No, absolutely. You go on.
Okay, so once you know who you are, you're a divine being, you're a universal being, one with everyone. Number two, stop giving your power away to people who shame you, who judge you. They have no right to judge you, by the way. God, by the way, does never judges you. Why? Because she would be judging themselves. And the moment God judges himself, everything disappears. So that's how powerful it is. The church told us that God judges us, and we talk about the judgment day. It's all about shame and keeping us in place. But if we're all divine beings and we're all equal and we're all free, we're getting there. The first step is to know that you are a divine being, a universal being, and one with all. And the next step is to find your greatness. Because if you're a divine being, then there's greatness in you. There's a gift in you. There's a divine gift in you. So when you find that and you find your purpose and you find a way you can serve others as a divine being, from the greatest gift in you, and you provide them with value, then you will be fulfilled. And you can create a compelling vision and goals, and you can have a life in which you thrive instead of being in shame. So, Oscar, would you like to add to that?
Well, I would add, but I would also ask a question around what you just said, right? So you said spiritual shame is the greatest one. Would you elaborate on how to get past that spiritual shame? What would be your way of dealing with it?
Wow, that's an amazing question. And if you look back in beyond history to the beginning of time, we were spiritual beings. We still are spiritual beings. Nothing of our power has gone. It may look that way, in this world that we've created. So how do we release that? we feel guilty because we have turned away from God. And I don't mean that in a religious sense. I mean that the universe, God, has always been there for us and is still there for us. But for hundreds and thousands of years, we've gone away, all of us. I should say most of us. A tiny, tiny percentage didn't. And they are enlightened masters, ascended masters. But most of us did. We walked away and said, oh, we can do this by ourselves. We lived in a reality that was limitless, but we've actually limited ourselves by turning away from our true power. So your question is, how do we get back to that? Is to admit, okay, I've walked away. I've walked away from my power. I've walked away from my spirituality. I've walked away from my divinity. And it doesn't work. So I'm going to walk back into me. I can't find anything outside of me that really works. But if I walk back into my real power, my real truth, and communicate with truth and the masters that speak the truth, then my life will start to begin all over again. And by the way, there's nothing to be ashamed of. We did what we did.
Can I add something to that? Because that is beautiful what you're just saying there. Would you say, because this is coming up inside of me, would you say that the reason why we actually feel this spiritual shame is also we become so ingrained in our own idea of being able to individually manage everything in our life, right? Because it's almost this idea. Look at that going on. Yeah. Anyway, it's almost this idea that it's like, oh, you know what? I'm strong. I can handle this. And it's almost the shame is almost the idea of, ooh, I cannot handle this, right? I cannot handle this. And it's okay, right? It is okay for me to saying and expressing my own, incapability of right now in this moment being powerless around what is going on, and then asking for higher power, right? Because the whole idea is to go back and saying, source, God, Jesus, my ascended masters, whatever, I'm laying down my own try for power here as a human being, and I'm calling upon you to give me or to aid me in this, because I'm tired of trying to fix everything myself, right? And like, if in essence, just letting go of that pride of keeping ourselves, you know what, I can do this, no worries, right? And because that demands humbleness, right? And that humbleness gives us the capability of moving away from this place where we're trying to managing everything ourselves.
Yes, absolutely, Oscar. That's a very, very profound point. Why? Because within us, we know we're limitless. We know we can handle everything, but we're trying to do it without universal power. And we fail in so many areas of our life. And then we beat ourselves up because we think, well, I should be able to do this. Why can't I be a master of the internet, a master of my business, a master of relationships? Why can't I do that? Why can't I heal myself? I know I should be able to. Well, because we haven't actually lost our power. The power is there within us, but we've lost the use of that power. And we need to surrender and say, okay, God, I've really messed up in my business. And, would you please take over?
Yeah. And you know what's so interesting when you're saying that? It's like I have it so much inside of me. When I did that, when I really lie down, because you do this in levels, right? But the fact for a consciousness to admit that it cannot right now handle everything on its own, and saying it's like, God, come and help me. There's almost, you will start sensing that there's an aversion. There's an aversion inside of you towards source, because you're saying, you're not coming here. I do not need you. It's like there's a, you, with me, at least in me, inside of me, there was I sensed an enormous anger. There was an enormous anger. It's like, don't come and say to me what I should do. Don't come with your 10 commandments or whatever. It's like, don't come with these crap to me. I don't have to lay down my will to you, right? It's like there's a degree of almost hatred towards that, and that hatred in itself is also what is cutting our off, right? And it's a part of the shame that we're feeling inside of us, and we need to move through that in order for the energy actually to come to us, because otherwise we're saying, I don't want it. Like, it's on your demands, right? I don't want your demands. Yeah,
absolutely, and we say in Swedish, we're envis, that
yeah,
it's like stubborn. I can do this, and I'll show the world I can do it, and and then we fail, we screw up.
Yeah.
Okay, so this leads us to, what does it lead us to? The resistance of the divine, right? And it leads us to what, in Scandinavia, what is jantelag, and how the jante law and how has it influenced us? And by the way, it's all over the world. This feeling of worthlessness, that I shouldn't shine my light. It says in the Bible, actually, shine, don't hide under a bushel, shine your light. So that is a truth in the Bible. But most of us don't think we should brag. So that's, if Oscar is, if you're willing, we'll talk about that next time, because it flows game to this actual law that we have taken inside us and is stopping us from our greatness. So, Oscar, how do we get in touch with you?
Well, as I said in the beginning, you reach me on realitydecoding.com. I also have a YouTube channel. It's called Oscar Nygren, where I talk about all of these things. And you can find me on Live Your Purpose on Facebook. That's a Facebook group. Yeah, that's where you can find me. And Katarina, where can we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Katarina Hanssens Carlsson. And my official name is Catherine Carlsson, but I prefer to be called Katarina. So reach me on LinkedIn, send me a message, connect with me, and let's continue this amazing conversation. So thank you very much, Oscar Nygren. And thank you, everyone, for viewing. And we will see you next week.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Katarina. Take care.